to develop the next generation of LED displays. And the project will help South Korea make the parts and materials it needs locally. South Korea and Japan get ready to hold talks at the WTO this Friday over Japan's export restrictions. This is their first consultation after Seoul filed an official complaint. And South Korea finds the outbreak of African swine fever has not been contained. Another case, the 14th, has been confirmed north of Seoul, prompting a lockdown on nearby farms. It's 4:00 p.m. here in Seoul. Thank you for tuning in to Arirang News. I'm Devin Whiting. There are growing concerns over Japan's plan to dump radioactive water from its Fukushima nuclear power plant into the Pacific Ocean. And the South Korean government has brought up the issue at a global conference in London this week. Park Se-young starts us off.
South Korea raised the issue of Japan's reported plan to release radioactive wastewater from the Fukushima nuclear plant into the Pacific Ocean at a global conference of the International Maritime Organization in London this week. During a meeting to discuss the London Convention and Protocol, Seoul's Fishery Ministry demanded that Tokyo transparently disclose information over its handling of the contaminated water and called for continuous discussion of the issue. The London Protocol is aimed at preventing marine pollution and bans the export of waste or other matter to other countries for dumping or incineration at sea. However, the direct dumping of wastewater from land to sea has been absent from the discussion. With the management of radioactive waste on the agenda for this year's meeting, representatives from China and Chile also expressed their concern and called for more discussion over the matter. Ghana's representative to the IMO, who is the chair of the meeting, also noted that the issue can be brought up for discussion and that Japan should provide information. For the first time, Japan's representative said it will continue to provide transparent information concerning the contaminated water at Fukushima. This is the latest effort by the Korean government to deter Tokyo from discharging an estimated 1.1 million tons of contaminated water stored at its Fukushima plant. Last month, Seoul raised the issue at the General Conference of the International Atomic Energy Agency. At the gathering, Japan dismissed criticisms claiming they were not based on scientific evidence. Park Se-young, Arirang News.
North Korea has recently aired a lengthy documentary on its intercontinental ballistic missiles. And experts say this could be a subtle warning to the U.S. after the talks in Sweden fell apart last weekend. Lee Min-sun reports.
Only a few days after working-level talks between North Korea and the United States collapsed in Stockholm, North Korea has broadcast a documentary showing the wide range of its intercontinental ballistic missile launches since 2017. North Korea's state-run Korean Central TV aired the 100-minute-long documentary on Tuesday, showcasing the regime's achievements toward self-reliance, including in terms of defense. The second half of the film focuses on showcasing various ICBM launches conducted in 2017 before North Korea declared a moratorium on testing. The section on the regime's defense industry includes all the weapons and missiles tested under Kim Jong-un's rule, including the launch of Hwasong-15, the regime's last ICBM launch in November 2017. This comes as the North Korean leader has been emphasizing the importance of self-reliance in a number of areas. Speaking during a tour of military-run farms in his first public appearance in almost a month, Kim emphasized the importance of developing the North's agricultural sector to overcome the country's food supply issues.
The emphasis on self-reliance means Kim thinks the North should stand on its own economic strength, even if negotiations with the U.S. break down. It seems the regime is emphasizing this issue because the recent working-level talks in Stockholm broke down.
Some experts also believe North Korea's fresh emphasis on self-reliance and showcasing its ICBM capabilities is to call for internal solidarity and to urge the U.S. to change what it sees as Washington's stubborn and inflexible attitude toward its nuclear negotiations with the regime. Lee Min-sun, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, North Korea and Iran are reportedly sharing military information, particularly info related to the development of nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles. Citing a report by the U.S. Congressional Research Service, Radio Free Asia reported Wednesday that North Korea is suspected of providing Iran with various technologies required for the development of small submarines. It also said the amount of Iranian crude bought by China and sent on to North Korea has steadily increased since 2015, when international sanctions on Iranian crude were lifted. However, the report said it's unclear whether Iran was involved in providing components for North Korea's recent missile launches. South Korea's presidential office says its nominee for U.S. Ambassador Lee Soo-hyuk has been approved by Washington. Blue House Deputy Spokesperson Han Jung-woo told reporters this morning that the U.S. gave its consent yesterday and that Lee will soon be appointed. He had to wait an unusually long time for his approval, 2 months, which some speculate might reflect Washington's disapproval of the Moon administration's decision to terminate its military intel sharing pact with Japan. He is a lawmaker with the ruling Democratic Party of Korea. He's experienced in inter-Korean affairs, having negotiated on behalf of South Korea in the first six-party talks. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe is reportedly considering meeting with South Korean Prime Minister Lee Nak-yeon if Lee goes to Japan for Emperor Naruhito's enthronement ceremony. That ceremony is on October 22nd, and according to Japanese broadcaster NHK, Abe would want to have a short meeting if Lee Nak-yeon is there. Observers say that could help improve the two countries' ties, which have worsened in recent months due to their trade dispute. The ceremony will be attended by around 200 key figures from around the world, and Abe plans to meet with around 50 of them. The Nobel Prize in Chemistry has been awarded to a group of scientists for their work on developing lithium-ion batteries, work that laid the foundation for the development of a commercial rechargeable battery. Lee Seung-jae reports.
This year's Nobel Prize in Chemistry was awarded on Wednesday to 3 scientists who each oversaw a unique set of breakthroughs in the field of lithium-ion battery technology.
The Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences has today decided to award the 2019 Nobel Prize in Chemistry jointly to John B. Goodenough, M. Stanley Whittingham, and Akira Yoshino for the development of lithium-ion batteries.
According to the Nobel Committee for Chemistry, their combined work not only revolutionized portable electronics, but also long-distance electric cars.
This year's Nobel Prize in Chemistry rewards the development of lithium-ion batteries. We have gained access to a technical revolution. The laureates developed lightweight batteries of high enough potential to be useful in many applications. Truly portable electronics, mobile phones, pacemakers, but also long-distance electric cars.
Their work dates back to the 1970s when Whittingham first proposed a prototype. While Goodenough greatly improved the battery in the 80s, Yoshino's work dramatically improved safety and enabled the commercial production of the batteries. At 97 years old, Goodenough also becomes the oldest laureate to receive a Nobel Prize in any category, while Whittingham becomes the second British-born researcher to win a Nobel Prize in Science this year. The trio will share a cash award of over $900,000, a gold medal, as well as a diploma that will be conferred in Stockholm on December 10th, the anniversary of Alfred Nobel's death in 1896. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Samsung Display announced new investments on Thursday worth almost $11 billion to produce high-end quantum dot OLED screens. South Korea's Trade Ministry has also unveiled a set of measures to help nurture the local display industry. Kim Hye-sung has the details.
Samsung Display is investing almost $11 billion to develop quantum dot OLED displays by 2025. It'll invest $8.4 billion in facilities and the rest in research and development of quantum dot display technologies. Quantum dots are tiny semiconductor crystals that can convert blue light into red and green when excited by an energy source. Quantum dot OLED displays have a higher energy efficiency and wider color range than LCD or liquid crystal displays. This investment is seen as a move by Samsung to accelerate the shift to high-end display screens and gain a competitive edge against its rivals from China and address falling profits amid the oversupply of LCD panels in the global market. It had mainly produced displays for smartphones, but not TVs. Samsung plans to retool some of its LCD production lines for quantum dot production and begin operation from 2021 with a monthly capacity of 30,000 sheets. It added that the investment is expected to create around 80,000 new jobs over the next 5 years. South Korea's Trade Ministry also announced Thursday that the government will allocate a $93 million new budget for the display sector in 2020. This is a threefold increase from this year's as part of efforts to support R&D and cooperate with companies and universities to nurture talent in the display industry. LG Display had also announced in July an investment of $2.6 billion in OLED facilities to expand its production for its premium OLED panels. 김혜성, 아리랑 뉴스.
President Moon Jae-in has welcomed the decision by Samsung Display to invest, especially the prospect of making parts and materials locally. He spoke at a celebratory event earlier today at a Samsung Display factory in Chungcheongnam-do province. He described the investment as the start of making South Korea's display industry unbeatable. Take a listen.
오늘 신규 투자 협약식은 세계 1위 디스플레이 경쟁력을 지키면서 핵심 소재 부품 장비를 자립하여 누구도 넘볼 수 없는 디스플레이 제조 강국으로 가는 출발점이 될 것입니다. 정부는 삼성 디스플레이의 과감한 도전을 응원하며 디스플레이 산업 혁신으로 기업들의 노력에 함께하겠습니다.
President Moon went on to say that government efforts will include injecting more than $334 million into the sector over the next 7 years. It'll also give its full support to the development of key parts used in OLED equipment and boost exchanges of parts and materials between smaller companies. South Korea and Japan are set for a showdown at the World Trade Organization's Geneva headquarters over Tokyo's export restrictions on Seoul. They'll be holding talks on Friday, attended by officials at the director level. South Korea had sent a request for a bilateral consultation after lodging a complaint with the WTO last month. According to WTO rules, both parties should hold their first consultation within 30 days of the original request. In July, Tokyo imposed export restrictions on South Korea on 3 high-tech materials, which are crucial in the production of semiconductors and displays. Seoul says the curbs violate the rules of the WTO and GATT. Now, it's been almost 100 days since Japan put those export controls on South Korea. Our Kim Bo-kyung takes a look at how Korean consumers have responded by boycotting Japan in all kinds of ways.
100 days have passed since Japan imposed trade restrictions on South Korea in July, and South Korea's boycott of Japanese products is still going strong.
This street outside Gangnam Station is one of the busiest streets in Seoul. But despite the number of people passing by, the inside of this Japanese brand shop looks rather quiet.
Japanese clothing brand Uniqlo saw its sales decline in July by around 70% compared to June, according to an analysis of 8 credit card companies.
Japan's trade retaliation and economic restrictions triggered me not to buy products related to Japan.
South Koreans also decided not to take vacations in Japan. A recent report by the Korea Economic Research Institute said that only 870,000 South Koreans took a trip to Japan during the summer vacation period in July and August. That's a 27% decrease on year.
As the number of Korean tourists in Japan fell during the summer vacation period, Japan saw a decrease of about $200 million in the indirect production. Accommodation saw the biggest decrease, followed by food services and retail.
Yet, Japanese firms aren't the only ones feeling the effects of the boycott.
As the demand for Japan tours decreased, sales and business profits of domestic airlines also dropped, eventually harming South Korea's economy.
Thus, some people are saying Seoul has to improve ties with Japan by having talks for Seoul's own sake.
The current economic situation isn't very good, so I wish we could talk this out, trying to pursue what's good for our nation.
As the boycott continues, the harm to both countries' economies will only increase. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
It's time now for an in-depth look at the market news at this hour. And for that, I'm joined on the line by Mr. Daniel Yu, global strategist at Yuanta Securities. Mr. Yu, thank you for coming on today.
Thank you for having me today.
So Bloomberg reports that the U.S. and China might reach a partial deal, on the condition that the U.S. doesn't impose new tariffs. The Kospi is down today, but this appears to be welcome news to the markets elsewhere, is it not?
Yes, it is. But still, the market seems to be quite volatile in regards to the trade talks. If U.S. do not raise additional taxes, China is willing to make a small-scale deal with the U.S., but U.S. is not saying that they are willing to do a small-scale deal per se, and that caused some of the concerns before, and the market seems to be continue to be very volatile. But overall, Asian markets were taking this as a positive news. As you heard, Japan's been up about 0.45%, and Chinese equity market, after a long time of closing, it's reopened, and it's showing a very strong run. Today, Shanghai is up 0.8%. Shenzhen is up more than 1.4%, whereas the Kospi seems to be taking a beating because of its option maturing day, and it's down 0.88%. Most important thing is that whether or not there can be a deal can be possible. We think that the view is that it can be done in some ways because both parties are suffering if they don't do any kind of deals at this point in time. And if given the elections coming in for the Trump at the end of next year, and Xi Jinping in a position where there's a lot of the political issues arising in regards to Shenzhen province as well as Hong Kong.
Yeah, and speaking of the protests in Hong Kong, now 4 months in, they're definitely affecting the Hong Kong economy and really have ripple effects elsewhere. What's the situation there, and how might it impact Korea?
Sure. If you look at the money outflow from Hong Kong to Singapore and other countries, it's actually quite largely happening. Total amount of about $4 billion have been moved out from Hong Kong. And Singapore's have shown that net increase in deposit jumped by 5% during the period of protest. And August alone is up 15% year on year, which is quite a significant jump. So far, there has been no regulations in regards to the money outflow, and that's a positive thing. But if there's any kind of the prohibition about money cannot be moved out, then that can be devastating for the structure of Hong Kong financial market. Hong Kong is always an environment of a deregulatory environment, and it has been one of the major places for the flows of the money to be deregulated in a sense. Now you are seeing that some of the monies are moving out, but so far it's manageable. The Hong Kong Foreign Reserve is $432.8 billion. It's a significant amount. But the problem is that Hong Kong's total deposit is $1.736 trillion. So if there's a major outflow coming out from Hong Kong, that could be a very negative news. Now, in terms of the process itself, we think that it's going to be very gradual. We think that the money outflow from Hong Kong will probably move into Singapore, as well as Korea and Taiwan, who are showing much better probability system for the time being. So, being said, it is negative news for China and Hong Kong, but maybe it might be positive news for some other countries.
Got it. Well, in the meantime, the World Economic Forum has released its ranking of countries in the Global Competitiveness Index. South Korea has risen 3 years in a row. It's now number 13. What stands out to you in this report?
Well, quite interestingly, that Korea is actually competitive at global scale. A lot of people in Korea are thinking that Korea's competitiveness has been dying out and that economic growth rate is going to fall to the zero territories and whatnot. A lot of the negativities are flowing around in Korean actual market. But the reality shows that clearly that economic competitiveness is rising, 2 steps from 15th to 12th, 13th. And the corporate activities are doing well. But only concern that we are seeing, though, is that there's major 2 parts, which is largely pinpointed in the past, which is the labor market flexibility issues and also the corporate governance issues. The ownership risk of Korean corporations, it ranked at 88th, fell from 77th, which is a sharp drop, and it is one of the worst number. As far as the flexibility of the labor market is less than 100th in terms of the ranking. So these are the main problems of Korea. We need to fix those things. Hopefully those things can be fixed. But in terms of the competitiveness of manufacturing sectors and various other competitiveness in other areas seems to be quite good.
Perhaps a sign of optimism on that front, at least. All right, Mr. Yu, that's where we'll have to leave it today. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
Now, there had been hopes that South Korea's outbreaks of African swine fever were over, but another case has been confirmed, making it the 14th case. The Agriculture Ministry said Wednesday that a pig farm in Yeoncheon County in Gyeonggi-do Province tested positive. It's the second confirmed case in that area. The ministry immediately dispatched quarantine personnel and restricted the movement of people and vehicles there. A 48-hour standstill order has also been imposed. Yeoncheon is one of 6 cities and counties in South Korea that have been newly designated as buffer zones. Now, China's toned down expectations for its trade talks this Thursday and Friday with the U.S. Reports say the talks might even be cut short. Our Kim Jae-hee has the details.
China is downplaying expectations for progress on its trade talks with the U.S., despite President Trump's optimistic remarks on Wednesday. According to Reuters, Chinese government officials said the Trump administration's recent blacklisting of 28 Chinese firms generated a negative atmosphere. The U.S. had previously added some of China's top AI companies to its trade blacklist over their alleged involvement in the surveillance and detention of Muslim minorities in China. The U.S. also announced new visa restrictions on Tuesday on Chinese officials they believe are responsible for the detention or abuse of Muslim minorities. The officials said while Beijing wants the trade war to end, they're not optimistic about any agreement in the short term, and added that more time is needed to improve ties. Hong Kong-based South China Morning Post also quoted an anonymous source saying there's a possibility the Chinese delegation may cut short their stay in Washington. The source said there's not much optimism, and the original plan of the delegation to depart Washington on October 12th could be moved ahead to the 11th. Meanwhile, President Trump told reporters earlier this week there's a really good chance a deal will happen. The negotiations scheduled for Thursday and Friday in Washington are the first high-level talks between the two countries in more than 2 months. Kim Jae-hee, Arirang News.
There's an island in the middle of the Han River in Seoul that's been practically abandoned for 50 years. That's Nodil Island. No development projects there have ever taken off, but now it's been given new life as a place for rest and entertainment. Kan Hyung-woo reports.
Sitting in the heart of Seoul's Hangang River, Nodil Island is poised to re-establish itself as a popular destination after major renovations have been made to transform the island into a multi-complex. Since its construction in 1917, the man-made island served as a popular spot for family picnics until the 1960s, but its popularity waned over the years as multiple development projects tried and failed to reinvent the island. Now, under the theme of Get Away from Everyday Life, Nodil Island is ready to make a comeback. This 3,000 square meter green space can be used as an outdoor concert venue or a picnic place with a clear view of Seoul's Hangang River. Aside from being able to soak in stunning river views, there are numerous facilities, including a bookstore, a lounge bar, and a plant atelier for visitors to enjoy.
This place feels somewhat refined. I don't know if there are many people coming here, but I think it's a good place to chill out. It's very city-like.
We used to only be able to walk around the park over there, but now it's nice to have more places to check out. We also like that it's turned into a place where people can actually come to instead of just looking at the island from afar.
Although visitors cannot park there, 14 different buses stop in the middle of the Hangang Bridge that's directly connected to the island. The specific bus numbers are posted on Nodal Island's website. Most of the island's facilities are open from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. from Tuesday through Sunday, with viewing areas on the roof and in the park open 24/7. 간영우, 아리랑 뉴스.
And that brings us to the end of this newscast. Thank you for watching. More live news coming your way at 7 p.m. Korea time.
This Mars chest lights on advanced technology.